sites that you could go to find information about him. In trying to summarize it, I know I can't do him justice, but here are just some of the highlights I came up with. He is the only college football player in history to win the Maxwell Award twice as college football's most outstanding player. He also won the Heisman Trophy in 1983, beating out some other great college players like Paul Giel of Minnesota, Alan Amici of Wisconsin, and J.C. Caroline of Illinois, just to name a few. He, of course, is in the College Football Hall of Fame. He played at Notre Dame under Coach Frank Lay and only lost 4 games in 3 years, including going undefeated his senior year. And Notre Dame played the toughest schedule in the country. He was a versatile 6'2", it said. I don't know if he's still 6'2" now? No. He was a versatile 6'2", 195-pounder, T-formation halfback, but he performed like a single-wing tailback, passing on the run, kicking, running, and returning both punts and kickoffs. In addition to his tremendous offensive contributions, he also played defense and had 13 interceptions at Notre Dame in his career. He rarely, if ever, left the field. He was featured on the cover of Time magazine on November 9th, 1953, and the inside story reads just as interesting today as it did 58 years ago. If you get a chance, check that out. Very, very interesting story with John. And he was in pretty good company in 1953. Some of the other people on the magazine covers included Dwight Eisenhower, Lyndon Johnson, Queen Elizabeth, and the Pope. Not bad company for a German Irish kid from Chicago's West Side, right, Doug?
You got him in.
After college, John was the #1 draft choice of the Pittsburgh Steelers and signed a bonus for a whopping $3,500. He played 1 year and then served 2 years in the Air Force and was there during a military-based football game. He suffered a severe knee injury, which ended his professional football career. In 2002, Notre Dame declared him one of the 5 best running backs in the school's history. Today, John is Vice President of Sales for Powell Graphics, a printing firm just west of Chicago. He and his wife, Peggy, where is Peggy? Back there in the back. Thank you, Peggy, for coming also. He and his wife, Peggy, live in Oak Park, a western suburb of Chicago. They have 8 children and 25 grandchildren, all of whom live in Chicago. He rarely misses a game of one of his grandchildren and shares his time and his Heisman Trophy with many charities and fans like us today. I said earlier he's related to the DeLagey family down here in Evansville, and we appreciate their efforts in getting to come down too. Please welcome one of the greatest names of college football history, Johnny Lattner.
Well, I'll take this back now. Thanks a lot for that introduction. I think there's a lot of added material in there that's kind of halfway truth. But I did get very lucky. You know, I can't believe how different it is to come down to Evansville. I came down here many, many years ago with my mom and dad. And my dad would, he never had a car, but we would leave Chicago at 2 in the morning. And we would get down to Evansville to see his mother and father at about 6 at night. Peg and myself left Chicago yesterday at 7 o'clock, and we were here at 1 o'clock. So it was a great, easy trip to come back to see all my relatives. I've been very fortunate to have such great relatives here in Evansville. It's nice to be here with them. I'm a very fortunate guy. I fumbled a lot. You know, I was a hard-nosed kid, but I fumbled a lot. And one of the games I fumbled with was a Purdue game in 1952. I was a junior. And I had been playing both ways. And they kept me in the game, and I fumbled 5 times. And that is still a record at Notre Dame that will never be broken. But after the game, my brother was at the game, my mother didn't show up, my dad was dead at the time. But anyways, after the game, I talked to Bill early. I said, Coach, do you think I could go home? We came to Lafayette that morning. We took a bus to Michigan City, and we took the Monon train that morning of the game to Purdue, Lafayette. And after the game, they went back on the train. And I didn't want to go back on the train with Leahy there, because I knew I would have a rough, he might have kicked me off the team, I think. Anyways, I asked the coach if I could go home and see my mother, who was very sick. You know, she wasn't, but my brother Bill was there, and my brother Bill, we did drive back to Chicago, and I reported back to Notre Dame that Monday morning after the game, went to my classes, and at noon we used to have a chalk talk with the law auditorium. And Leahy, like here, would be up there on the stage in the pedestal, speaking stand. He would go through what we did the previous Saturday. And here's what's kind of his first remarks. Oh my God, lads, last Saturday, against the enemy at Lafayette, we had a young lad who matriculated from a very fine high school in Chicago, didn't mention my name. He said, this young lad disgraced his mommy and daddy, the University of Notre Dame, and the coaches here at Notre Dame, and his teammates by his 5 fumbles. And I've always told him time and time again, as he grasped the pig skin from the quarterback, we expect him to go to the goal line, but not hit the ball on the 5-yard line. And he went on and went on and went on, and I kept getting through. I was right in the front row. But finally, he dismissed it. Said, I really didn't have a lot of speed as a halfback. It looked like I had because I had long legs, but I took off like I beat some of the linemen out to the front door almost. But I got to the front door, and Leahy called me back. And, oh, John, would you have a little chat with me? So I went back there. He said, oh, John, what in the world happened to you last Saturday, John? You know I could not prepare myself for the upcoming game because of your fumbleitis. A boy of your caliber, why would you fumble 5 times? I said, Coach, I'm not sure why I fumbled. He said, I was just wondering, John, do you have any type of girl problems back in Chicago that would cause you to fumble 5 times? And no, Coach, no boy problems either. and he said, when you were a young lad, did you ever go to Hawthorne Racetrack with your father? We lived on the west side of Chicago, which is not too far from where Hawthorne was. And my dad used to like to go to the track. He said, yeah, I went with my father. He said, did you ever bet any of the horses when you were there? I said, well, if I had some money, I might take it, yeah. I was wondering, John, did you bet any money with the bookies back in the west side of Chicago? He thought it was really, we did beat the spread though, that game. But, you know, those things go on, and you get through them, you hope, and I was very fortunate in that respect. But after that, he did tell me something. He said, if you wouldn't mind, John, I'd like to have you do a little favor for me, if you wouldn't mind. I said, no, Coach, anything reason? He said, after this little chat with me, I want you to go to one of the chapels here at the University of Notre Dame, and I want you to confess those 5 mortal sins you committed last Saturday. And a lot of stories that we go on and on. My sophomore year, we played Southern Cal, the last game of the season, out on the coast. And they were 6-2-1, and we were 6-2-1. And ironically, it was going to be the first game that was ever in football or any sports televised coast to coast. And it wasn't like television is today, they didn't have the big promotion, but it was color, it was not color, black and white, it was telecast coast to coast. So we went out there, and I was only a sophomore, and we stayed at the hotel they had in Copacabana, a great hotel on Wilshire Boulevard, I can't recall its name. And Leahy would never want to go to the opposing team's practice area because he was afraid that the coaches would watch us practice and pick up something. So we would always stay in the hotel and practice in the banquet facilities. Oh, how much practice can you have, you know? But we had a practice session in the morning, and that afternoon there was a movie being made with Marilyn Monroe. It was called Crash by Night. And it was at the RKO studio. And myself, Neil Ward, Kip and Joe Heap, and Tom McHugh, we all went over there that morning after practice. They let us in, but all we met was Bart Stanwyck, Paul Douglas, you know, those type. But we wanted to see Marilyn Monroe, and she was there. So we went back to the hotel, went through the practice session again, went back to RKO studio in the afternoon. She was on the set, and we talked to her for about 45 minutes in her little cubbyhole that all the stars had. Very nice lady, just couldn't be any nicer to us. And we were ready to leave, and she said, would you like to have a picture of publicity picture? We said, sure, Meryl, it'd be great. So she starts writing. She said, well, what should I say on it? I said, well, to Jan, thank you for that wonderful night we had together. Love and kisses, Meryl Monroe. By golly, she did. And she did it to the other ball players, too. Well, when I got married, it was in a flood, so I don't have the picture to prove it. I'll tell you the story later. But and she was so nice. She drove us back to the hotel. That's how great she was. And a buddy of mine was in the Marine Corps there, and he was waiting to see me. He had to go back to Pendleton. She drove him back to Pendleton that day. We had her all lined up to come to the game the next day. She was going to sit on the bench. We had field pass. Leahy would have gone backwards. I know he would have gone backwards. I'm not ever played another game of football there, but anyway, she was all set. And she, on a publicity shot, she had her telephone number. She said, I called her that Friday night after we got back. I said, you know, Meryl, we were all set, we got tickets for you, you know, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, I'd love to come, Jan, and I was ready to come, but I had to pick up another athlete at the airport. Joe DiMaggio beat us out. But that was a great story, it was great. So my fortunes in the day, I was very, very fortunate. With my fumbles and all that, I could go on, and I'd like to go on a little bit more, and if you're interested, I'll tell you some more dirty stories. No. Let me check my notes for a minute. I have to have notes now. I'm 78 years old, so. One of the nicest things that happened, it wasn't kind of nice, it was kind of neat, talking about Frank Leahy, how my freshman year, my dad died, and Leahy had the worst season he ever had in 1950. He was 4-4-1, and he never lost 4 games. And we started spring practice, believe it or not, right after our exams in January, the end of January, and we practiced all the way up to May 15th. And in the process of that, my dad died in April. And we had a wake in Chicago, and then we brought him down here, and we buried him out of here. And Coach Leahy came with Bill Hurley and Bernie Crimmins, and they all came to the funeral. And this is the middle of spring practice, and we were wheeling my dad out, and Coach came up to me and said, "Oh, John, I'm awful sorry about your father. You know, he never met my dad. You know, the unbelievable. You know, that was that type of thing. They were recruited, but they didn't. Well, he didn't. Anyways, I said, well, he was a nice guy. I know that. He said, John, would you mind? We could take you back to the campus right today. I said, Coach, he wanted me back for practice. That's the only reason why he asked me. There was no doubt about it. I said, how about my mother? Oh, okay, you can go home. He changed his mind. But it was a great era. We had some great teammates. We had a nice book printed about us last year about the Forgotten Four. Not just our backfield, but it was about the football team. And it was just one of the nicest books I think I ever read. It's not just about, as I say, us. It's about Notre Dame and what the priests did to some of the guys that broke the rules. And we did break the rules with our kids, you know. Fortunately, we were able to stay in school. But if you wanted to ask me any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. But anyways, Peggy, oh yeah.
I heard a story one time about you talking to Paul Harney when he was a freshman.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Paul was a freshman when I was a senior. With third double sessions, 1953, and I had hurt my ankle, and I couldn't practice. Leahy was mad at me. He couldn't understand. My ankle wasn't swollen. Why wasn't I practicing? But every time I tried to practice and tried to cut, all I could hear was cracking in my ankle. And this is before we played Oklahoma, the opening game in 1953. So one day after practice, he said, Jan, he says, I want you to do a favor for me. I want you to go over and talk to Paul Harney, who's a freshman here, and I want to make sure you're his big brother and make sure he's happy here at the University of Notre Dame. Right, fine, Coach, I'll do that. So that afternoon after practice, I went over to the dorm where Harney was, and knocked on the door. Paul and Jack, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. We're talking back and forth. And I said, are you happy here, Paul? He said, oh yeah, very, very happy. Fun. I said, let's go to the movie tonight. He said, nah, I don't want to go to the movie. I said, well,
I'm sorry. Then he said, well, let's go to the next town over. And I said, well, we had to need a car if we go there. He said, don't worry about it, I got a car. So he took me there 2 nights in a row. I said, Paul, you know enough about Notre Dame and you have enough, I don't have to be your big brother. That was a great story about Paul. Great guy. Love you guys, thanks a lot, appreciate being here. Oh, the other one? Yeah.
John, talk about the coaches since, you've probably met them all, since Leahy. Who were 2 or 3 that you thought were,
Yeah.
wish you could have played?
Well, Eric Garcia, no doubt was almost like Leahy. He was a perfectionist, and Leahy was a perfectionist. Yeah. We didn't get too fancy, but we know how to block, we know how to tackle. You know, and I think Kelly is going to do a great job. He's got a great defensive team there this year. I got a little mad about his pass defense, but that happens against Michigan where you're on the 18-yard line and there's 18 seconds left in the game and you let a guy score a touchdown and give him the field goal. I think he should have had more than one-on-one type of defense. But anyways, Leahy was tough and the coaches that who are you about? What was the question again?
The coaches, like Divine, you know.
Oh, well, Eric was a good one. Lou Holtz was a good one. Dan Devine wasn't a bad one. You know, he did a great job. I think the greatest thing what a coach can do is be a leader. You know, he's the general in charge of everybody and get the right assistant coaches. And they're the lieutenants, those are the guys who are doing all the work. And Dan Devine was great at that. He couldn't call a play and do it right, but he has some good assistant coaches that could do it. That's why he was successful. Now I think we're on the right mood with Kelly. He's a good recruiter. He's familiar with the kids in the Midwest. Kids don't want to go to Notre Dame anymore because it wasn't the glory. I guess like when I was there, Notre Dame was, if you had a chance to go to Notre Dame, you didn't care about the weather. But I think today a kid could go down to Texas or go to some place in Florida and be on top of the world. You know, they got great teams down there. So we just don't have all the gimmicky things that some of the high school kids want. But it is a great school academically. And if you bear down and put your mind to it, you're going to get a nice education out of it. And if you play good football, you're going to get drafted. So I think I went to Notre Dame for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons was when I went there at 50, television was not a big thing. And I knew for a fact that out of 59,000 people that were at a game, 35,000 were from around Chicago. And I wanted to live in Chicago, so I figured I'd play it at home. There was another incentive for me to go to Notre Dame besides getting a good education. You know, and I did get a good education. So, yeah.
Talk about some of your favorite games and when you played at Notre Dame.
Well, I got lucky in a couple games. I think the best game that I ever played in was Oklahoma game my junior year. And they had a great team. They had Billy Vessels and Eddie Crowder. They had beaten Pittsburgh that year 44-0. That year we lost to Pittsburgh. So at the time of the game, they were about a 3 to 4 touchdown favorite, and it was played in South Bend. And we went out there, we played a damn good game of football, and we were beating them in the fourth quarter with about 7-8 minutes left to go in the game. And I don't know how we held them, except that I think one thing that Bud Wilkins did wrong, he let Billy Vessels have the ball, but he didn't let him, he wanted him to throw the ball. And he was not a threat throwing, so we didn't worry about him throwing the ball. But when he ran, he was a hell of a runner. He was a great runner. And we saved the game. We saved the game. And another thing happened, the illegal shift, they call it. We went down and we scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. We went ahead of them. And what we used to do was, on the split tee, you would go on the count, and you go 1, 2, 1, 2, and boom, boom, boom. The lineman would charge out. Well, they call it illegal shift. Guglielmi would go down, set, hut, and we'd shift out. And when we shifted out, the defensive lineman couldn't do anything but go across the line of scrimmage. And we only did it around the 10-yard line, because the last 10 yards of the hardest 10 yards again, so it'd be 1st and 5 instead of 1st and 10. And Kerry was the quarterback, and Tommy Kerry, took it over the next play for a touchdown. That was our winning touchdown, so that was kind of an important play, kind of a cheating play. Then the fading episode with Frank Riccone, I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. We were playing Iowa my senior year. And Iowa was Shesky was the coach at the time. And they had a good team, but he was just getting to know his players. And fortunately for him, right before they actually scored a touchdown, they go ahead 7-0. And we get the ball with about maybe 2.5 minutes left in the half. And we walk the ball down. We get all the way down to about the 14-yard line, and we run out of timeouts. Well, Frank Riccone was a big tackle from Natick, Massachusetts. Faded. I don't tell you we practiced it, but we did practice it. And the rules were for Frank to lay flat on his face in the mud. Don't move. And the clock would stop right away. No doctors came out. And it would start as soon as the injured player left the field. Two big tackles would drag him off, and another tackle would come in to take his place. And Dan Shannon was the end on the team, and we threw a pass at Dan, and he scored it, tied 7-7. This sounds like a story, but the second half, same position, except there was only 2 seconds left. Frank wasn't supposed to fade. Art Hunter was supposed to fade. Hunter was down on one knee, and Frank was out like a light with his nose in the mud. Carried him off, got a substitute, threw the ball to Shannon again, we tied him. Well, after the game, I thought Evashevsky was a pretty tough guy. I thought he reached across the field, and I think he wanted to get a piece of Leahy. And Leahy was pretty tough too. He could handle some. But we didn't win the national championship. We were undefeated that year because of the fading. Because AP and UP coaches and sports writers said, "Oh, that's dirty play. You can't win anything like that." So we lost to Maryland. Maryland was undefeated, and we went in the tie. Maryland went on to play Oklahoma, the team we beat earlier, and Oklahoma beat them in the Orange Bowl. So they still gave it to Maryland, but it was okay. We consider ourselves co-champs. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John, for your very interesting remarks. We appreciate your taking the time to drive down here from Chicago, and best of luck to you and your large extended family. Join us next week. We'll have another great football legend, Raymond Berry, the guy who caught most of the football passes from Johnny Unitas, and then later went on to coach the New England Patriots in the 1986 Super Bowl, which he lost, of course, to Mike Ditka and the Chicago Bears. I sat with him for 2 hours at the Night of Memories. Paul Reese asked me to do that one night while I signed autographs. And he doesn't talk too much about the Chicago game. But a lot of people wear Chicago apparel to come up and talk to him that day. And he was very hospitable to him. But you can tell it's still a sore point in his life. But he loves to talk about playing with Johnny Unitas. And he'll tell you some great Johnny Unitas stories. So join us next week, and Raymond Berry will be our special speaker. Thank you.